Chickweed is very cooling, it clears heat, it moves heat, which is why I love it for menopause, for that heat of menopause.
Hello, and welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through nature connection. I'm your host, Rosalee de la Forêt. I created this YouTube channel to share trusted herbal wisdom so that you can get the best results when relying on herbs for your health. I love offering up practical knowledge to help you dive deeper into the world of medicinal plants and seasonal living. Each episode of the Herbs with Rosalee podcast is shared on YouTube as well as your favorite podcast app. Transcripts and recipes for each episode can be found at herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or through the link in the video description. Also in the video description, you'll find other helpful resources. For example, to get my best herbal tips, as well as fun bonuses, be sure to sign up for my weekly herbal newsletter. Okay, grab your cup of tea and let's dive in. Today's guest has been an herbalist for many decades and has taught many herbal students over the years. Kat Maier is the founder and director of Sacred Plant Traditions, a center for herbal studies in Charlottesville, Virginia. One of her greatest accomplishments has been to train many clinical herbalists who have gone on to begin other schools, apothecaries, or open practices. In clinical practice for over 30 years, Kat teaches internationally at universities, conferences, and herbal schools. She is a founding member of Botanica Mobile Clinic, a nonprofit dedicated to providing accessible herbal medicine to local communities. This grew out of her school's free clinic, which was one of the first on the East Coast and went on to be a template for other schools. She began her study of plants as a Peace Corps volunteer, and her training as a physician's assistant allows her to weave the language of biomedicine into her practice of traditional energetic herbalism. She is co-author of Bush Medicine of San Salvador Island, Bahamas. As a passionate steward of the plants, Kat also served as president of the United Plant Savers and was the recipient of the organization's first Medicinal Plant Conservation Award. Hello and welcome, Kat. I'm so thrilled to have you here on the show.
I know, Rosalie. I've been really looking forward to it myself.
Yeah, likewise. Well, we're going to talk about so many fun things today. I'm really excited about your new book. But before we jump into that, I would love to share, for you to share with everybody how you got into this plant world.
Thank you, Rosalie. And I love that you asked that question. I've loved your guests, and all of our stories are just so wonderful and inspiring. And so it's just such a wonderful way to begin. So, growing up, we didn't go to the doctor, we didn't go to the herbalist, we were really pretty healthy. So I really attribute the beginning of my plant studies to joining the Peace Corps. And so I was 19, I was in Chile, and I was a health and nutrition educator because I knew I wanted some form of medicine and healing. But at 12, I knew I wanted the Peace Corps, and nothing was going to come after that. So it was the late 70s, so modern medicine was very important in allopathy. And there was a saying in Chile, no sea bruja, don't be a witch. And so there was this undertone of, really putting traditional medicine in the background. So it took a while for me to begin to watch women with plants. And I just remember, Rosalie, the first time I ever drank one of their strong infusions. I'd never had an herbal tea, maybe mint, maybe chamomile, but I never really had a medicine brew. And places lit up in me that I didn't even know existed. And
Mm.
I just had this journey experience in a way. And so when I came back, I went to graduate school and in DC, and I was all about we got to save this medicine, and traditional medicine, really can't disappear. And, it didn't take long for me to realize that, wow, this template of development, is sort of this white person's idea. And, again, this is early 80s, but just something didn't feel right, and where's the invitation? And then I had this existential crisis, and I thought, well, I don't even know about the herbs in Virginia or Appalachia, or who am I to go save herbal medicines when I don't even know them here? So that sent me out of grad school and went out to the mountains. Worked in this wilderness school for emotionally challenged young women who had suffered uh, different levels of trauma from different places, organizations, family. So I thought it was a wilderness school, and we built our own structures. And I thought, I'm here for the plants. I'm living in the woods. That was my ticket. And I thought, oh, how hard can it be? I've been in the Peace Corps. I can do this. And it was really hard. But these women, these young girls and women, it was amazing. So I spent 2 years there, and right before my commitment was up, I met this woman and she said, well, look, if you're really interested in herbal medicine, you should go to the British School of Phytotherapy. It was in Bath, England at that time. It has since moved. And, I'm in some ways, you love science as well. I love how you really weave in science and make it sort of the same language of the sacred, of the energy. And so I too am a recovering scientist, and I really wanted that aspect for the plants. And the other thing is, in here in the States, I wanted to work with a certain community, a low income, urban, and herbalism, again in the early 80s, did not seem like, a entry point. But anyway, I went over to Britain and I interviewed at the school. But before that happened, I visited friends in Ireland and I was doing a counterclockwise tour. And I know your heart is also in the hawthorn hedges. And so I got to the west coast of Ireland. I got to Doolin and I just didn't leave for months.
Hmm.
So for me, what that was is this was my journey of indigeneity. I kind of thought I was coming for the British school, but my mother's, I have ancestors that I really hadn't met. And so yeah, I was hustling jobs. I was doing botanical tours of the Burren just to make money, working in restaurants, just falling in love with so many aspects of west coast of Ireland, and really had a deep experience with that. And so then I did go to the school, and it was so beautiful. But when I returned home, I thought, I really want to work in medicine and I want to be accessible. So I became a physician assistant, loved it, totally loved the training. I didn't want medical school, I wanted more of the plants. Totally loved it. And you know how we have these great plans. It's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And after that, this is going to happen. And I had this great plan. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get 5 years. I'm going to see all the rashes and learn meds and learn all that stuff. Learn how to stitch, kind of do, barefoot doctor stuff. Rosalie, I think, we have dreams. And then I think there's this overarching dream that dreams us.
Hmm.
And so when the two align, then, bliss occurs. So what happened was the dream that was dreaming me ahead of mine was, no, you're going to the plants and right out of PA school. So I found myself at a herb farm in Luray, Virginia, making minimum wage, making dried flower wreaths, and also planting herbs to the biodynamic calendar. And so it was just this amazing experience. Lived in a cabin, we didn't have running water. And this is back in the day when massage was not licensed, if you can believe that. So I thought, well, I'm making minimum wage. I have to pay my huge medical, loan for school. And so I got a massage table, learned to massage, and I did that during the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'd come home and we would just live in the forest. We just lived in the mountains and the meadows. And I had my books, and I was spent 7 years really in this self-taught mode, applying medicine and doing study. And so I always feel that I really am a community created herbalist because I would never refer to myself as an herbalist. We just weren't doing that then. It was when my community started referring to me. "Oh, go see the herbalist," or "Yeah, she does massage, but you should check out her herbs." And so that's when I really felt initiated by my community. And then I met Rosemary Gladstar, and all of a sudden this world opens up, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people out here that, work this way. And she shone her light on me, and I was able to teach, and then really found our amazing community of teachers and herbalists and conferences. And we're all so anxious for us to join again. So I went and I traveled. I sought certain teachers out, and I traveled and I learned from them. And then we opened an herb school. Teresa Boardwine and I opened up a herb school in Little Washington, Virginia, called Dreamtime. We had that for 7 years because I thought, wow, the journey to become an herbalist should not be so torturous, and it was a hard road at times. And so then we opened that school. It was a great school. We had great guest teachers. And then after 7 years, I moved down here to Charlottesville, where I have sacred plant traditions and creating a whole other community. It's not urban. Charlottesville is not urban at all, but I have this downtown sanctuary. And my new mission is, you don't have to wait till you have 20 acres. Plant the plants, plant the
Mm,
ginseng and golden seal. So here we are today, mm, enjoying this conversation.
mm. Well, thank you for that story, Kat. One couple things that struck me is one, just how the plants kept calling you back, no matter like where you went or what you did. They were like, "Kat, come back. We're here."
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
I love that so much. And also, one thing that I just really want to accentuate for people who may not know you before today is, as in your bio, I love how you said in your bio that one of your greatest accomplishments is that you have inspired, all these other herbalists who have become
Yeah.
clinical herbalists, apothecaries, etc. And over the years, I can't tell you how many people I've met her. Oh, I studied with Kat Maier. Oh, I went through Kat Meier's
Oh,
program.
thank
So
you.
I just wanted
Thank
to throw that out there, that
you.
you really have been sharing your wisdom with a lot of people, and it's like
Mm.
a rippling, ripple going
Oh,
out there. So
yeah.
yeah.
I had a Chinese teacher long, long time ago say, Rosalie, the goal of a healer is obsolescence.
Hmm.
And that deeply struck me, and I thought, "Oh, but we'll always have to make a living, and we'll always have to have import." And, now that I mean, I could leave Charlottesville, I could disappear from the planet, and herbalism is really thriving here. So that's why I share that, because that's what you're doing and teachers are doing, and, passing it on. That it's such a joy.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I'm really excited to talk about chickweed. I'm excited for a couple of reasons, but I should start with you. Why are you excited to talk about chickweed, Kat?
Oh, I know. It's like, oh, I want to hear why you're excited. And boy, how do you choose one herb? And so, one, I've been recently harvesting it. I love the fall greens. Just like mesclun and just like our spring greens and fall greens. We have that in the herb world. We have the spring chickweed, viola, dandelion, and then they're back in the fall, and they're fresh and juicy, and they've kind of gone through that summer and kind of wilted and got bitter, fibrous. So I've recently been back at the lush fall chickweed, and I love the archetype and the story of chickweed, that she's so incredibly gentle, and whatever gender, you might feel that chickweed's male or a spirit, or and that really doesn't matter. But for me, it's so incredibly she's so nourishing and nutritious and gentle. Yet I have seen chickweed go deep in with MRSA, impetigo. A lot of my teachers are the Mennonite community I work with. And for the Mennonites, this is not alternative. I've done many, many home births. I've had the honor of working in that community, and they don't transport. So they have extended many, many boundaries for me. Whooping cough. When one gets it, 8 get it. So with chickweed, impetigo, strep, serious bacterial infections. I've worked with chickweed, a compress, working with a tea or a gargle, serious infected boils. And, when we learn the energetics, which you so beautifully teach, and stay true to that and really repeat that, because for beginners, it is a little foreign, but it clears heat. And so chickweed is very cooling, it clears heat, it moves heat, which is why I love it for menopause, for that heat of menopause, to really clear that and moisten. And it really brings yin, if people are familiar with yin and yang. And the yin is more the fluid, the water element. So I can go on with many other stories about chickweed, and many people now are starting to work with the spirit of the plant. And but for me, I don't teach that spirit medicine. I meet my own plant and I journey to the plant, and it takes a long time. It isn't just a weekend workshop and, oh, I know this. And so it's just like we've had wonderful encounters, and but spending more and more time, I would really feel your spirit and know that. So for me, what chickweed really invited me to use her in was children who don't laugh enough.
Hmm.
And so what was interesting is when I would then work with children and kind of look at that profile when you're doing intakes, I would notice there would be dry lungs, that they might have been on medications, that they might have had a history of asthma. So it was this beautiful bronchial application, adding it into teas and primarily teas. I work with tinctures in a way. And when you're working with chickweed, you really want to do a fresh plant tincture. But I remember learning from Susan Weed. She was one of my first herb teachers, and she was perfect out of medical school because I had all these rules and regulations and limits, and oh, but I can't go there, and oh no, you're going to need to treat that seriously. So Susan, in her Aquarian way, kind of blew boundaries aside. And so learning chickweed in the beginning was always had to be fresh, always had to be fresh. And then Phyllis Light came to our school, and what she does is these wonderful provings, and you drink a cup of this big vat of tea she makes. And we all had profound experiences. And she kind of had this knowing smile, and she said, "That was dried chickweed."
Hmm.
So she really taught me through that experience. I use it dried a lot now
Hmm.
in teas, going deep. I think chickweed is like viola, violet. It really works on boundaries. And that's why chickweed works with cysts and fibroids and sort of dissolving those boundaries, which is why I think it works. With deep infections. Like, I didn't know about biofilm way back when. And I just wonder if chickweed doesn't have a relationship of kind of moving through biofilms or the protective barriers the bacteria set up because they want to thrive. They want to stay intact. So I now work with dried chickweed. I used it in COVID, moistening some of the dry respiratory issues. Boy, there's rarely a place where I can't find a reason for working with chickweed.
Well, thank you for sharing so much of that. Yeah, chickweed, it is such an unassuming plant. It's a weed that will just grow in people's gardens. I've also seen it growing in forests, like a weed in disturbed
Mm,
soils. And one reason I was excited to talk about it is because of its energetics. Just it is such a emblem of how we it's just so easy to get it with chickweed. You take a bite of it, you taste that it's moistening, you can feel the cooling functions on it. And it is interesting that it has kind of a sweetish or bland taste. It's not hard to eat at all. And so many of our
right.
herbs that clear heat are very bitter.
Mm,
Like golden seal
mhm,
comes to mind immediately. Super, bitter. And this one, it's just so it seems so unassuming. It's like this tasty,
right.
sweetish, bland weedy green. And then it's just so amazing for infection. But really and you keep in mind that when there's a hot, inflamed, dry something going on, it doesn't even matter what it is. If it's just hot, inflamed, dry, chickweed. I mean, that's and it's the cooling, moistening qualities of chickweed, and it just makes so much sense, and it works.
Yeah.
So,
That's so beautiful. Exactly. So that's why digestive system, respiratory system, it's just knowing, the tissue state or energetic, whatever lens and language you work with. And it's pretty ubiquitous,
yeah.
which when we're looking at sustainability now, and it has to be the main conversation, it'll grow during the winter.
Mhm.
And especially if you have a greenhouse. People that have greenhouses, I will go and I'll borrow a corner and spread chickweed seeds, because then you'll have the fresh for earaches or some hot winter infections. It loves the greenhouse, and
Mhm.
you have to have a friend because it will spread. But I love it. And even under snow, it's just so gentle, yet such a powerful plant.
And that was interesting you said about you use it for children who don't laugh, a lot, because there is something so cheery about it,
Mm.
when you get to know chickweed. I think it's like one of those spirit things. I can't say that I know why it's cheery, but when you spend time with chickweed, it's got those little flowers that just seem so playful and cheerful. Yeah.
Exactly, and isn't it called starflower, or there's many common names, but I think it's this star, and when you really get your loop and you look at the flower, it's these radiating petals, and it just is sort of, this energy of moving out, and that's why these herbs, these plants, you can sit and you can contemplate them for a long time, and
Mhm.
they just continually reveal themselves to us, and that's the mind-blowing aspect of how generous these plants are. They will keep revealing themselves. So I love chickweed tea for the dry atrophy aspect of menopause or andropause, with men as well as women, working with that tissue and really moistening that.
Yeah, and the other symptom that another obvious heat symptom is hot flashes, especially associated with menopause. And so I'm excited to talk about your recipe because I get this question a lot about hot flashes, night flashes, that obvious
Mm,
sign of heat. I mean, that's like anyone who's experienced that, that's heat. There's no question there. And,
no question there.
and you're sharing a tincture recipe that includes chickweed for clearing heat.
Yeah, so that was my classic in way back when formula, and it's black cohosh, and I'm sure that it's listed, but the herbs are the chickweed, black cohosh, dandelion taraxacum. I can speak a lot about that in menopause, and then depending on the person, sometimes it would be Vitex, and now I'm using less black cohosh because that's really threatened, and because of menopause we've tons and tons have been harvested, and there's a huge black market. So what I've been using instead of the cohosh is kudzu, the vine that took over the south. I mean, kudzu is not endangered, and what's interesting is both of those plants, what the medicine is more than a phytoestrogen, they're steroidal. And so those steroids really nourish our body, nourish the adrenal. And, with black cohosh, why it works, it loosely binds in those hormone receptors. And so you don't have, that the surge or that need. And what's interesting is one of the main mechanisms of hot flashes is, your body's like, oh, make FSH, make estrogen, make estrogen. And then when the stores are low, it'll throw out adrenaline. Like, come on, you make this. It'll kind of demand it. That's the hot flash. It's that adrenaline surge because it's trying to kind of jumpstart the hormone, if you will. So the beautiful thing about cohosh is it's steroidal, and it helps the adrenals and helps that cortisol. And traditionally it really wasn't used for menopause. It was rheumatism and joints, because it's just so deeply nourishing through steroids. And look at kudzu. If your listeners aren't familiar with kudzu, it just is the vine that's crawling all over southeast, and it's a steroid. Like, that's the
Mhm.
archetype. If you look at a doctrine of signatures, it's on steroids. And so I've been trying to use more kudzu. But I really love the Vitex, supporting progesterone, the black cohosh, supporting the estrogenic hormones. Dandelion, our liver breaks down hormones. So working with dandelion root during menopause, for me, that's liver heat. That heat, that hot rising is also liver heat. If people are a little familiar with Chinese medicine, and so it's so cooling. Roots have a downward direction. In vitalism, every plant has a direction. So, and dandelion, I mean, it's just ubiquitous, and it's just such an incredible medicine, and vitamins, but I love putting dandelion root in there just to leave this energy, because a lot of times in menopause there is liver congestion. There's lots of surges of hormones, or maybe people are on medications, or just living in America. So I love dandelion in that formula.
Nice. And I think there's a motherwort in there as well.
Oh my gosh, of
Hmm.
course, the queen. Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back and do a whole show on motherwort. So motherwort, yeah, I mean, vasodilator, it's a cooling bitter. It's just so incredibly comforting, because it does dilate the blood vessels. And so that's very relaxing. It's a nervine, it's another bitter. And sometimes I've just pure simply worked with motherwort. And that in itself can really affect, like if somebody has sort of a PRN hot flash bottle, sometimes I'll give them a little bottle of motherwort. So
Hmm.
if something's coming on at work or during the day, sometimes the alcohol is heating, because you do have to be careful of that, because alcohol has its own energetic that can aggravate hot flashes. But you can take it, and it can sometimes have a very quick effect on that.
Lovely. One thing that I really love about chickweed, especially for hot flashes and night sweats, is that it's not only cooling but also moistening. And for
Mm.
not always, but sometimes from energetically, that sensation of the heat can be caused by lack of moisture in the body. And so that's a really nice, it's just such a great pairing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and sometimes viola can be in there as well, because lots of nutrition, a lot of nourishment. And we work a lot with unhoused, and we work in our free clinic, and working with herbs that they can gather, that they understand, and it's heat. You know, Street living is harsh. It's really, really harsh in hydration, and they love chickweed viola teas that we'll take
Mm.
and make in an urn. And so that moistening aspect, you're so right about that. You're so right. And that's why I love it. With It's a safe enough tea when folks are on inhalers or steroids for asthma, because they can be very drying. And we really, that mucous membrane lining, that is our immune system. Keeping that moist, keeping the sinuses and lungs and all that mucin, that's where the immune cells show up. So this is a great time to start talking about that as wood heat comes on, or indoor heat. The winter broths, you really want them moistening. You want to really keep that nice and juicy with the membranes.
This message is for the listeners. As you probably know by now, I love to share recipes when we talk about these plants. Recipes are a wonderful way for you to get involved and create your own experience with herbs. It's one thing to hear cool facts about chickweed, but an entirely other thing to form your own relationship with this plant through observing, tending, and tasting, and really getting to know its herbal energetics for yourself. To help you get to know chickweed more deeply, Kat is sharing a tincture recipe for addressing menopausal hot flashes. She calls it Meno-ease. You can download your recipe card by visiting herbswithrosaleepodcast.com. There, you'll also find the show notes, including direct links to Kat's offerings and a transcript of this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to share about chickweed?
Well, it's interesting. One of Susan Weed's uses has been in weight loss and metabolism. And what I have found is it's this great relationship with minerals. And in my view, water follows salt. And chickweed is so salty and nutritious in good earth salts. So why I think it also is so deeply moistening is it has this salt, and when it moves into the cells, it attracts that water. It brings that water in, and so it also helps metabolism that way. And I have found that when women are trying, or men, it's mostly women, trying to lose weight, chickweed provides this satiation. And it's kind of hard to describe, but it might be that moistening. Uh, they just feel content. It's just this calming and relaxing, and that's why I love the energetics, because moistening treats tension. And with all the tissue states, that tension or relaxation, when you're looking at tone, that can be caused by dryness, and that can be caused by heat. So when we're moistening, not only are we nourishing and building the tissue, but then we're also allowing that body to have what it needs, so it's not striving for nutrients or creating a tension, if you will. So it really addresses dry atrophy, tension, um, and so many other stagnation. I mean, it moves things. And chickweed is really interesting, and I think that's because of the salt. I think I'll use it in stagnant lymphatics, whether it's red root or calendula, or when there's this kind of stagnant lymph, nodules aren't moving, or whatever that may be. Chickweed will pull, because the lymph system is our internal ocean. It's really all about water. And so when you have these nettle and earth and mineral teas, that really helps move lymphatics. So I add chickweed to my lymphatic teas.
Mm.
I bet we could go to digestion and find, but yeah.
I love the language you're using, Kat, because so often when people first get interested in herbs, they're kind of focused maybe on like solutions or problems they're having. So they'll be like, what herb is good for high blood pressure? What herb is good for digestion? What herb is good for acne? Which is a fair question because that's what brings a lot of us to the world of herbalism. But then there's like this opportunity to like pull back the curtains and see this whole beautiful
Mhm.
wide world of herbalism, and really is a whole other language, a whole other way of thinking about health and illness or dis-ease. And I'm so excited to talk about your book. And I'm just so thrilled to have an early advanced copy. Got this before most people. And I've been pouring through it. And this is such a great book for that, learning that language, learning that different
Mhm.
way of, a traditional way of looking at energetics, and so much of what you've been talking about,
Mhm.
tension, heat, stagnation. Those are definitely the language of the herbalist.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's what's interesting about the book is, in some ways, it's my 3-year clinical curriculum.
Hmm.
And yet I don't want to have people have to come to a school or pay money, or how can I make, what I feel for practitioners, or working with your family, working with yourself, working with your friends. What are some of the languages and skills and tools? And so in many ways, that's what energetic herbalism is. It's kind of everything I know, everything I believe in, and it's taking the different energetic systems, whether Chinese, Ayurvedic, and then our own Western language, and familiarizing them. Because at the end of the day, as you know, Rosalie, it's all about the elements. It's
Hmm.
about fire and water and wind. And because I think that the one conversation everyone needs to be having now is climate change, how can we help people directly engage? And I am fire. Where is the fire? What is earth? And how we relate. Our bones are earth. We are these elements. And so to learn the elements, we're learning our nature. And if I know more of my tendencies and who I am and what I'm prone to, then that can guide my food, my diet. Plus, it's so super fun. It's
It
like,
is.
oh my God, this is so cool. And it all is substantiating traditional medicine. It's like, oh, that's why all the digestive herbs are stimulants and aromatics, and they're moving and they're pungent. And it kind of like, as you said, it's like makes things fall into place, and it can be very intuitive. It can also be confusing, so this was my attempt to try to simplify and present what can be pretty overwhelming concepts in a easier format to digest.
That's interesting. You say that this is your like 3-year clinical curriculum because when I was reading the book, I like looked up at my husband one point and I said, "This book is what I went to school for 3 years of learning." So
Oh, that's
it was
so
really, yeah, yeah. So
great! Yay! Mission
yeah, there's
accomplished.
so much in there, but like you said, simplified
Uh,
and really weaving
yeah,
together of traditions. One thing that
right,
I love about energetics is that, like, when I first started learning energetics, I remember feeling like some resistance, and I was learning a lot of Chinese medicine, and I remember learning, like all the patterns, like deficient kidney yang, and I was like, deficient kidney yang. Like this, I'm just like memorizing this weird,
right,
stuff. Like it doesn't make sense to me because I'm not
right.
Chinese, and but once I started practicing and once I had more experience, I realized like, oh, this is just revealing a pattern that already, that exists.
Exactly.
And now I have some terminology, some experience, and ways of recognizing that pattern that were just invisible to me before.
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
a revealing of what is, and it's so beautiful that that gets tied into our bodies, plants, nature, because it really is just seeing all how all of those weave together and the patterns that already exist.
And that's such a key word, pattern, and it's patterns of nature. And so it's why native peoples would never build on top of a mountain, because there's wind and it's windy, and wind dries and wind gets things stirred up. And so when we realize whether it's a vata dosha or lots of activity brings wind into our body and it dries it, it becomes this organic expression in relationship with the world around us. And we start watching water. And, this is what so many of when I say indigenous, I mean Celtic indigenous and Swedish indigenous. There's, every land and continent, has their native people. And, the interesting thing, and I'm so glad you said that, is, why I love Western energetics is it's vitalism. And, when I'm working with clients or students and I say, oh, wow, your vitality's back, or you look more vital today, as versus, oh, your prana is rising, or spleen chi, or using languages that create this hierarchy again. That create, oh, I don't really know what chi is. I don't want to ask. But vitalism, oh, it's hot, it's cold. Everybody knows stagnant. Like stagnant's a state of being. So what I love about the Chinese and what I use are the seasons and the
Mm,
emotions and the spring, liver, anger. How do we process that? Whether it's winter and kidneys and fear. To me, when I learned the seasonal elements and the correspondences, I just thought this is a gem. And then the
hmm.
Ayurveda doshas, I know that we have Western constitutions. Jim McDonald, I'm a huge fan and friend, choleric and sanguine. And when he teaches it, I get it. But it just wasn't a system I resonated with. I love the doshas. It speaks to me. It's the elements. It's really the elements. So I honor that. And, I'm really grateful that today we're really looking at well, whose tradition is it? And am I appropriating traditions? And we're really having this great conversation. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful for Vasant Lad and all the Chinese teachers and practitioners that wanted us in the West to have this information, have this knowledge that they shared willingly, because it's 5,000 years of brilliance and
Hmm.
observation of nature that
Hmm.
it just makes sense.
Yeah, that is so true. I don't often talk about this, but I'm very much a student of 5 phases, and like you said, the Chinese seasons,
Oh,
I actually
wow.
that's something a big part of my life. I do a lot of studies with that. I have my own mentor, and so, each season I'm sinking deeper and deeper into that, and like you said, 5,000 years of wisdom. I'm just trying to, grasp little specks of it, but it is something that is, again, revealing about patterns and just brings me I find it so
Oh.
fun and interesting, but there's also a lot of healing there as well.
Oh, that's so wonderful. That's so exciting. And so many people call it five element. And when I learned it, it was called five element. But I've loved doing a deeper study and realize it is the phase. It's all
Mhm.
about transition, and
Mhm.
it's representing the movement of seasons and the movement of elements and the phases of our lives. So
Mhm.
that's so wonderful. So well, you'll have to give me feedback on and well, I'd love to have longer conversations about that because it's so entrancing to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about herbalism, like, if we just stop at the door of, like, what herb is good for high blood pressure, it's just, it's kinda like just bump. I don't know, there's not a lot there, you can, like, name up some herbs and there you go. But when
Right,
you talk about these energetics and seasons and patterns and nature connection, for me, it's just
right.
so much comes to life, and it's just a never-ending joyful experience that is so, for me in my life, has been so deeply enriching and has really informed and, led my whole life now.
I know, and we'll be forever following it.
Forever, yeah.
There's a poet, William Safford, who refer to him in the book, and he has this great poem called "The Way It Is," and he talks about this golden thread, and there's this thread that we follow and others can't see, and we can't explain it, and we don't know why we're following it. And I find so many people on the herbal path. It's hard, it's isolating and sometimes lonely, but they have this courage, we're kind of like outlaws, we don't fit, and I'm so happy we don't fit. That golden thread can be very different for different folks on the plant path. And the one thing I do want to say, yes, we're always saying, well, I can't treat high blood pressure. Are you hot, you cold, you damp, you're dry? And yet at the same time, I just love how if somebody has a headache and you're like, well, try skull cap and it works, these herbs can work symptomatically.
Mhm.
And then the person's hooked, then the
Yeah.
person's like, oh, I want more.
Mhm.
So, I always say to beginning herbalists, just, don't worry, just keep it simple and try things simply and things that are safe, and then you'll have time to delve deeper. Because I still, for shingles, it's still hypericum skull cap. For 30 years that has worked, and it still works. But it's so great, all the different variations. But those energetic languages become a contemplation, and it's our nature, and we begin to experience things on another level.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this with us, and I'm excited for people to check out your book, Energetic Herbalism, and, just so excited for all that you've shared to be able to share this with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, choosing, I only chose 25 herbs, and that was a self imposed limitation. And again, that's because, my work with United Plant Savers, we really have to begin shifting and changing habits. And just what you were saying, when you learn the energetics, you can work with plants in so many different levels. And so to pick the weedy herbs or, choose just 25 herbs, it was, truth be told, a little painful. And I thought, oh, where's Tulsi? Where's Rose? I don't even have Rose in there.
Mhm.
So there might be another book with plants in it. But, I just really love taking one plant and really seeing how far can we explore with this.
Actually, when I read that in your book, because you do talk about, that you only chose 25 and that was intentional. And I just felt like when I read that, I was like, yes, that's some constructive feedback I've gotten about my books that there's not enough plants. Some people want the encyclopedia compendium of, 200 plants, and I'm right there.
Mm.
With you and that, the let's narrow, simplify, and then go really deep. And actually, your story about how you started with a few, and then you went on this tour and you learned so many, and then you came back to the few is my exact same journey. I learned from an ethnobotanist, so it was very like you learn the plants that grow here.
Uh
Then I learned Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, and all of a sudden I was like, all the herbs. I just want to do all the herbs all the time. But then when it came to actual practice, when I was in clinical practice and then just, using plants for me and my family, it kept coming back to these same more select herbs that I had a
huh.
deeper relationship with.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Yeah, I have in the book Suevo Brooks, fabulous herbalist and writer. And I just say this over and over to classes that he says, it's so much better to know 40 uses of one plant than 40 plants with one use.
Yeah.
And it's such a mantra. And it took us, it took us our journey, to venture out and then come back home.
Yeah.
And so that's so interesting. That's beautiful.
Well, before we go, Kat, I'd love to hear if something on your herbal journey has particularly surprised you.
Hmm. Um, boy, how to choose. So I'd probably say the greatest surprise that keeps revealing itself is what we were just talking about, the revelation of layers of medicine.
Hmm.
And, I tell the story of Black Cohosh in the book and how I met it. And it was my first kind of spirit experience. And, I harvested, I grew it, I would preserve it, all these uses of cohosh and kind of the good old days when we thought there was an abundance, we had a lot more freedom in using it. And then I tell the story about studying with my teacher, Karen Sanders, who's Choctaw, and Sarah Holmes. And we were in an apprenticeship. So a lot was set up. It wasn't simply gathering in a circle, there was a lot of medicine and holding space and sacredness. But so it was our final weekend, and we were in a culmination of our studies, and we were going to do ancestral work. And so, they give us a drop, and how we work with them is we take a drop of the tincture and then we're off for about an hour and we go journey. And, the Kohash experience was psychedelic, kaleidoscopic, and immediately I see the double helix. And, it was this profound, profound journey that was so certain. And and I came out, and this isn't that long ago, and I thought, "Oh my goodness," I've been harvesting and growing and using cohosh, and here's this whole other medicine, and it's a Choctaw medicine, and it's how they make their medicine. And I don't know if I could, I can't teach what they teach, I can tell stories, but then how many other plants have these hidden medicines? Maybe chickweed, we have that. So, I think the surprise is it never ends. I'm forever humbled. I'm absolutely forever humbled. And I really mean that because it's not just, oh, I'm honored or it's blessing. Like, I am blown away on my knees. Like, wow, it's psychedelic just without entheogens. The plant world is so multidimensional. And, that's the beauty of these simples. So it might be a little longer, but that still is surprising and delightfully so.
Yeah, I loved hearing all of that, Kat. That's decades of experience and a lot of wisdom in there as well.
Thank you, Rosalie. Thank you so much. And it's so wonderful because I love your writing and all that you do. And, to find so many similar experiences and discoveries and, along the way and those energetics that you have really done so much for getting out incredibly simply and bringing that language as a common language now. That's how folks are looking at foods and herbs, and it's our work. It's our
Yeah,
work.
yeah, it is our joyful work that's forever expanding, forever deepening. Yeah,
And revealing and exciting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with me and everyone today, Kat. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Rosalie. This was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the link in the video description to get free access to Kat's Meno-ease tincture formula. Also available are the complete show notes, including the transcript. You can also visit Kat directly at katmeierherbalism.com. Before you go, be sure to click the subscribe button so that you'll be the first to get my new videos, including interviews like this. I'd also love to hear your comments about this interview and this lovely plant. I deeply believe that this world needs more herbalists and plant-centered folks. I'm so glad that you're here as part of this herbal community. Have a beautiful day.